All right. Good evening, everyone. This regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission is called to order at 5 o'clock. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, one and indivisible. Liberty and justice for all. All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to this regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. For items scheduled for a public hearing, residents will have the opportunity to comment on agenda items. Speakers should state their names and full addresses for the record and address all remarks to the commission. The commission asks that public remarks be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Let's see, item 3, open forum. In addition to public comment on agenda items, the commission offers an open forum whereby citizens may comment on governance issues over which the city of Nacogdoches has domain. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, members of the commission shall not discuss, deliberate, or make any decisions on topics not posted as an agenda item. Speakers should address all remarks to the commission and limit your remarks to no more than 3 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to speak? All right, if there is no one for open forum, we will move on to consent agenda. Item 4A, approval of minutes. Consider approval of minutes from the June 8th, 2026 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on June 8th, 2026.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Let's see. Moving on to regular agenda items. That takes us to item 5A, discuss and consider action on specific use permit case SUP 2026-05. Regarding a specific use permit request for a radio, TV, microwave, or cellular transmission tower commercial in a R1 single-family district on one parcel of land approximately 40.66 acres plus or minus in size, more particularly described by Nacogdoches Central Appraisal District parcel 26160, and generally located on the south side of Southeast Stallings Drive, approximately 1/2 mile south of East Main Street, Nacogdoches, Texas.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Juan Paulette, City Planner. So this site is approximately 40 acres in size and is located on Southeast Stallings Drive, just south of Mike Michaels Middle School. The property is undeveloped and consists of large open area that was used for dirt excavation and is surrounded by mature tree cover along much of the perimeter. The surrounding area consists primarily of large undeveloped tract of land, and the city limits borders the eastern and southern boundaries. The proposed 195-foot cell tower will occupy a 60 by 60 foot lease area and is located near the front of the property. The subject property is zoned R1 single family residential. To the north is McMichael Middle School, which is zoned B2 general business and agriculture. The property borders the city limits along the eastern and southern boundaries, with a small section bordering R1 single family. The future land use designation for the subject property is mostly rural development, with a small section of single-family residential to the western side of the property. Both designations are intended to support low-density development patterns. The proposed communication tower is a low-intensity use and is not anticipated to negatively impact the compatibility of surrounding land uses. This slide shows the proposed site plan for the communication tower. The tower is located near the front of the property within a 60 by 60 foot lease area and is set back approximately 100 feet from the roadway. The tower will be enclosed by 8-foot chain link fence and include landscape screening around the perimeter of the fence. The landscape plan will also preserve the existing vegetation surrounding the site. This is a picture of the entrance of the subject property from the loop. And this is the proposed location of the cell tower towards the front of the property. And this slide shows a 200-foot notification area. Property owners within 200 feet were mailed notice letters, and property owners within 200 and 500 feet received a courtesy notice postcard. No responses were received in favor or in opposition of the request, and a neighborhood meeting was held on July 8th, and none of the neighboring property owners attended the meeting. Staff has reviewed the request based on these criteria and find that the proposed use is considered to be compatible with the surrounding properties, will not impede the orderly development of the area, and not expected to create adverse impacts related to traffic, infrastructure, or nuisances. The applicant, Cody Cogdill, is present if the commission has any questions of him, and I'll be happy to answer any questions after the public hearing.
Thank you, Juan. Would the applicant like to make any comments?
I don't have anything unless you have something for me.
All right, thank you. Let's see. So then,
Open the public hearing, you said.
hearing aids don't work all the time.
Open the public hearing?
Okay, then we will now open the public hearing. Would anyone like to speak, address, ask questions? Okay, then with that, we will close public comment, open it for discussion.
I don't have any questions.
We dealt with one of these a few months ago.
If there are no questions, no discussion from the commission, does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept agenda item 5A
As presented.
as presented.
Second.
Oh, you second, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, say the same. But I think we all said aye. All right, thank you. Moving on to item 5B. Get my bearings here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Safe
Thank you for
travels home.
coming.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, item 5B, discuss and consider action on zoning case ZON 2026-04 for a comprehensive plan amendment to update the Nacogdoches future land use plan by adding a two-family mixed residential future land use class, which is compatible with single-family, two-family, and manufactured home residential land uses in certain areas within the city limits of Nacogdoches, Texas.
Good evening, Commissioners. Mike New, Executive Director of Development and Infrastructure. This proposed amendment is a city-initiated request to update the future land use plan and map components of the Nacogdoches Comprehensive Plan. In 2025, the 89th Texas Legislature enacted major changes to manufactured housing regulations, primarily through Senate Bill 785, which takes effect September 1, 2026. Specifically, SB 785 mandates that local governments allow the installation of new HUD code manufactured homes in at least one residential zoning classification or district within their jurisdiction. SB 785 also prohibits requiring specific use permits for HUD code manufactured homes in residential zones where other housing types do not face such requirements. The bill also exempts historic districts and properties under deed restrictions that predate January 2nd, 2025. This is in our executive summary for this agenda item, but I want to walk you through some of the history and discussion. I know two of our sitting commissioners have gone through a lot of this preliminary discussion, having sat on our zoning ordinance subcommittee. Commissioner Perry, you may be hearing some of this for the first time, but we've kind of had some preliminary discussions with the commission, kind of telling you that this was coming up and it's here. So let's walk through some of what we're really considering tonight with the commission. So again, state law now requires the city to permit HUD code manufactured homes in at least one district. That goes into effect September 2026. As of today, and I'll get into the details of this where it appears in our code, we do not allow HUD code manufactured homes in any residential district. Just there is no by right ability for property owners to install manufactured homes on a single lot. There's still manufactured homes allowed by specific use permit in manufactured home park areas, which is allowed in R4 and B2, but none in our traditional residential districts. So just by that alone, we don't meet state law, or at least won't meet it after September 1 unless we initiate a change. So what we're looking to do here is kind of take this in two steps. One, and this is the item that we're considering now. It's a comprehensive plan update with changes to the future land use plan. What we're doing with the future land use plans, we're evaluating areas, we're assigning desirable areas for where potential changes to zoning districts might be applied. Doesn't actually change any districts, but it says for future land uses, here are some desirable areas. That's what we're going to consider with this item. There's a second step to that process in order to enact potentially new districts or other changes to zoning. That would be a zoning ordinance update. So this item is about the future land use plan. What's happened so far? Like I mentioned, in June of 25, the legislature passed Senate Bill 785, effective September 1, 2026, dealing specifically with new HUD code manufactured homes. The very next month, we adopted, and we already had planned to adopt, the newest version of building codes, 2024 international codes, residential, commercial codes, fire codes, and the National Electric Code, the most up-to-date that there are to date. Along with some revised local amendments, as any city would. There's local cases that may qualify as amendments where international codes don't necessarily comport, so we've got local amendments with that, but for all intents, we've updated our codes from 2015 version to 2024 version, or 2023-2024 version. That's important when it comes to HUD code as well. That is our new standard as of today. In September, just a couple of months later, the HUD code standards, manufactured home construction safety standards, were updated. After about 30 years of hiatus and no change, they were updated and took effect. Those code changes are essentially in line with a lot of the building codes, the 2024 building codes that we have adopted at our level. Some cities are still in 2021 codes or even 2018 codes and maybe even older. But we're up to date. HUD code is now up to date. Those are kind of aligned, and it's important for us to note that when we get a little further along. In November of 2025, our codes finally took effect after our grace period for 90 days. In March of this year, our zoning ordinance subcommittee began reviewing in detail some of our zoning options related to that Senate bill. There's a wide range of options that can be considered in how the city might comply with this bill. We looked at a number of things, whether HUD code manufacturing housing should be applied universally to all residential districts, whether it should be applied to a new district. We weighed those options and discussed among those committee members exactly what might make sense for Nacogdoches, what other things should be considered. So there were several meetings held in March, April, and May. And then in June, City Council received a presentation from staff giving options and direction to staff in how we bring a compliant code change forward, just to make sure we meet that September 1 deadline over the summer. So in July of 2026, we held 2 neighborhood meetings, one regarding this future land use plan change. We had 13 property owners in attendance for that. These are property owners that were within affected areas that we notified by postcard. We were not obligated to, we were not legally required to do so. Our 2 public hearings, one of those being right now, are our legal obligations for this particular item because it doesn't change entitlements. But we did hold a neighborhood meeting. We sent out about 422 postcard notifications. We did have 13 property owners in attendance. Those were resident property owners as well as landlord investor property owners. Here are our current maps. The commission would be familiar with these. Folks in our audience may not have seen both of them. We have our zoning map to the left, showing all the current zoning districts within the city, and then to our right is our future land use map, part of our comprehensive plan. The labels, the colors are a little bit different because the future land use map is intended to be a little more generic, not fine-tuned, precisely defined as our zoning districts are, because it's not an entitlement. It's a guide, it's direction, but you can see some similarities there. Those are very different maps and should be used very differently. The commission knows that, but for the public's purpose, these are used as guides and tools, but the zoning map does reflect land entitlement. So what does our zoning ordinance say? Dwelling manufactured, and there's a little blip there, it should say manufactured home. We've corrected that in the proposed red lines. Means a structure constructed on or after June 15, 1976, according to the rules of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. I wanted to include the existing definition there for you to let you know that We really didn't have to change our definition. It already comports with a manufactured home being specifically a HUD code manufactured home. That is the definition. And that's important in terms of meeting the obligations of the new legislation. We want to make sure our definition, anytime we use the term manufactured housing in our code, we don't want to have to state HUD code manufactured housing, create some distinction. We want basically our definition for manufactured housing to be that HUD code manufactured housing. There's a definition there, 317. We'll cover some of this in the next item, but I did want you to see where this is reflected in our zoning ordinance. This will be covered in detail in your next item for consideration. For the public's purpose, we'll remind the commission comprehensive plans, long-range 20 to 30-year documents designed to guide a municipality's future physical, economic, social development. It's a blueprint that we use to manage growth and infrastructure. Texas Local Government Code authorizes us as cities to adopt comprehensive plans, and then we are obligated at that point to use them as our guides for considering zone changes when we do have a zoning ordinance. Our last and active comprehensive plan was adopted in 2003, and previously that revised in 1994 version. I included a link there. Some of these slides that I'm presenting here, we have shown in our neighborhood meetings. We presented this to the folks that did participate in those meetings. So what does our comp plan say specifically about manufactured housing? How is that going to drive what the commission is considering tonight? It mentions it in several areas. In the Vision and Goals chapter, it names manufactured housing as one of 6 key housing issues in terms of affordability and how it may fit in strategically in other residential development within the city. Making manufactured housing compatible. It was something the comp plan at the time wrestled with, didn't explicitly define zoning areas or districts area. That's a very important point of that comp plan. Some residents see it as a negative, others see it as a positive in terms of affordability, but manufactured housing is a component that should be considered. That was a driving force by the comp plan without explicitly describing specific areas for it. I won't go through this list in detail, but this is part of our comp plan. All the mentions of manufactured housing, how it could be applied in consideration, particularly in terms of future land use. So our land use chapter, we kind of narrowed that down to a real key point in how we assess locations, that manufactured homes should be located at appropriate sites within the city where there are similar homes. It's a compatibility-based siting principle that they belong within the existing context of other similar homes. Same concept we use in terms of buffering, that you wouldn't necessarily place a multifamily district next to an industrial or a single family district right next to a multifamily. In some cases, a city being as old as we are, you're going to have a lot of mixes that don't really meet that standard just because of time and how development happens. But generally that is the guide of the plan. But what the plan does not say is it doesn't create a specific zoning district, as I mentioned. But it does call for standards and placement criteria, which we'll be using as I present some of this in our background today. So bottom line is we're not compatible. How do we get there? And here's where our zoning ordinance subcommittee got to work. Remember, SB 75 requires at least one district that allows HUD code manufactured homes by right, whether that's an existing one or a new one. So we looked at our existing ones first. R1 through R4, R1 being the low density, larger single family home lots, R4 being the high density multifamily lots. We kind of ruled out those two extremes of the spectrum for residential districts. We already provide for manufactured homes within park areas in R4. And R1 is our stick built, our larger single family homes. With those larger lots, it's a dominant presence within the city's area as a large residential district area. Doesn't really meet that for smaller homes, for smaller lots in that smaller use case. We're really finding more of that in the R2, R3 districts. So we kind of ruled out R1 and R4 for consideration if there were going to be placements within existing districts. And Commissioners Arant and Zemanek, feel free to chime in. These were kind of tossed around quite a bit. What we did was we looked at this map on the right. It's a draft map. It's a working map that we use to kind of draw out this analysis. We highlighted only the R3 and R2 districts. We looked at the land areas. We looked at the densities and kind of made some determinations in how the subcommittee might recommend to the city and to the commission and council. So that now that we've narrowed that down a little bit more, we're looking at R2 as slightly higher density, R3 is higher density. That also includes what we call two-family or duplex housing. And both of them had a presence of some manufactured home parks. R2 had a very large presence of historic district overlays. Those would be exempted from consideration. So if we were looking to apply this a little more broadly in an existing district, R2 maybe not be the best use case for that, since it does have a lot of historic district overlays. And again, it did have existing manufactured home parks, but not very many manufactured homes on single lots. Prior to 2004, the city did allow manufactured homes on single lots by specific use permit. Again, the legislation says that cannot be done. That's why we're not bringing a recommendation to bring that back. R3, those stars that you see on that map graphic, those were highlights of existing manufactured homes on single lots that we identified. There's some clusters too that might look a little bit different. Those were manufactured home parks, but we'll touch on that one at the very bottom there in just a minute. So R3 was kind of our district that had the largest number of manufactured home lots that had specific use permits, only one historic overlay lot, and 2 active manufactured home park areas. Those were important to know so we could determine if it was ideal to approximate areas or desirable areas near manufactured home parks. And specifically what came up, and that's that bottom where you see the green lines, the outlines of those parcels, and a lot of those stars, that's Millard's Apple Park subdivision. That subdivision prior to the city's prohibition of manufactured homes on single lots, that subdivision was actually platted with covenants to include manufactured homes. So I think one of the only ones that I can recall, and we looked at quite a bit of plats, the only one that I can recall that specifically called for manufactured home developments within that subdivision. So another option we considered, a new zoning district. You might see further along on the agenda that this is what we decided to move forward with. In consideration of this, the new zoning district, it provides exclusively for HUD code manufactured homes. The consideration for this option is we're not disrupting existing districts by including manufactured homes, although that would meet the letter of the law. By creating a new district, we're sort of confining that additional use to a new area that then has to be zoned into, potentially out of, but zoned into being a new district. Does it have impacts on infrastructure and service capacity? The density typically of manufactured homes is not as heavy as, say, an apartment complex. We didn't really have a lot of concerns about infrastructure capacity being an issue in terms of creating a new district, potentially one that you would have manufactured homes. Our target here was applying something that would promote or encourage or incentivize infill development, meaning if there are lots with existing manufactured homes that are finding it hard to replace because, one, our code prohibits in general unless it meets the non-conforming criteria, and then if it's an empty lot, no one would be able to place it, even if it had one before. If it extended beyond that non-conforming 180 days gap, property owner would not be able to utilize that property the same way. Creating a new district, creating an area for this, and having a property owner take advantage of that gives them the ability to return to that state, gives them the ability to, by right, install a HUD code manufactured home. Okay, if we create a new district, we still have to identify desirable areas for that where our future land use map falls short. We identify multifamily, we identify single family. We don't really have an in-between. We don't have an area that's sort of mixed in those terms. And our map should identify areas that are desirable for a district like this. There could have been a number of ways we approached this, but what we as staff determined and presented to the neighborhood groups and sort of initially presented to our council was that we would identify what's called a two-family mixed land use class. This class is simply a desirable area where we see if there are zone change requests and the P&Z Commission and Council consider them, they would consider them as desirable within these areas. One of the things I'll mention about this graphic, because it did come up in our neighborhood meeting, they're looking at it and they're going, well, is it the circle or is it the bright yellow area? All we're doing with the circle is just highlighting where that change is, so your eye can kind of focus on it. And we'll get more specific in the coming slides, so you can see those specifically. But updating the future land use plan, specifically this map, is going to be that first step. And we included areas that are most compatible, meaning these areas where we identified pre-existing manufactured home lots that had SUPs, lots that currently have manufactured homes on them, that are aging, that have been there. They're currently non-conforming uses within the city that may be approximate to manufactured home parks. They're all enveloped within the R3 district. So these highlighted areas are currently R3 residential districts, duplex dwelling districts. And again, the future land use plan designation and a zoning map designation, they can be different. They can be different because we're really defining general areas here. So we're locating within R3, we're approximate to other similar properties, we're prioritizing infill. Again, we're looking at areas that have manufactured homes on them that may be vacant lots, but they're all defined lots within the city. And then for future, again, we're keeping our eye on meeting that state obligation. Millard's Apple Park, you'll see that come up in a future item. Here's the northwest area that we defined off Old Tyler Road. What you don't see further north off Old Tyler Road is a manufactured home park area. That is not highlighted here. This is simply within that neighborhood area off of Old Tyler Road. Fredonia Street, looking off, again, similar concept right there at the corner. What is that? What's that road right there, right at that triangle corner? My eyes can't focus on that.
Townsend?
Yeah, that's the Townsend Avenue. So right in that area, there is an existing, very small manufactured home park. It's kind of splitting those parcels there. And you have some, with each of these, you have a few smatterings of undeveloped lots or lots that previously had a home structure that don't any longer. And then here on the southeast side, kind of in the Shawnee area, Greer Street kind of is our road boundary for this particular area. Again, we're trying to draw lines here, but these are general areas. So if someone on the north of Greer Street were to look at this, that it would likely be a consideration because it's in this general area. Again, this is where we've seen existing manufactured homes, where we've seen previous specific use permit holders that almost all of them have expired at this point. Defining that area. And then of course, Millard's Apple Park down on the far southeast side off Woden Road. This is the only platted subdivision we've identified to kind of fit within this area. Again, everything around it is largely undeveloped or out of the city. To the east and to the south is out of the city, but to the left is undeveloped. A little bit further along, again, I'll just mention this because it was a factor in this consideration. R3M duplex dwelling district is a request that would kind of follow this, but we need to look at the comp plan and two-family mix as a consideration. I will say in our next steps in our review process, this P&Z action and ultimately council's consideration in August is the final step. Beyond that, it's implementation and monitoring. We do have, and we can mention this at the end of the meeting, but we do have a positive note where the city will be engaging a consultant to consider comprehensive plan changes. We did get a grant from the state to do that. That's a much larger umbrella conversation that we would have. There could be considerations of this and what action and recommendation P&Z makes tonight that could be a factor in those discussions. So implementation and monitoring is constant with staff. And when we bring items to you or we bring applicants to consider zone changes, it's all within the context of what does our comp plan say? What does our future land use plan say? And how does it fit within the city's adopted model? Again, July 13, that's today, and then August 4 is council. Are there any questions? Kind of rattled off a bunch there. Are there any specific questions? Actually, we'll deal with questions after the public hearing.
Thank you. Okay. Well, moving on to public hearing. Does anyone have any questions? Anything you'd like to share on this item? Okay. If there is no one interested, we will close public hearing and move on to discussion with commission members.
I don't have any questions.
I think we've sat through
Right.
this
Yeah.
quite a bit.
And thank y'all for doing that.
I think because I've had some friends reach out to me about it. I think what's important for our community to hear, and maybe you want to speak a little bit about it, Mr. New, but this isn't necessarily that one day local government woke up and said we have to put pre-manufactured homes, which, I've had to learn to change my language. I used to call them trailer houses. And so this is us complying with state law. So this is not us saying, hey, we're just ready to open up a whole new zone and just have I can't call it a trailer park, what do I call it? A pre-manufactured home community. That's not the purpose of this particular piece that we're looking at today. It is by state law, we must provide an area where these are allowed, not necessarily by just an SUP, but by right. Am I understanding it correctly?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Just like if someone was in an R1 district and they want to build what we call a stick-built home, a traditional home. A home you build on site in pieces. We inspect phases of it. It's traditionally how homes are built. So yes, we are, and this was a question that came up too in the neighborhood meeting. Are we just doing the bare minimum to meet state standard, to meet state law? No, we're not. We'll get into why I say that probably in the next item. But again, this being the first step, we need to look at our guide. What does our comp plan say? What changes do we need to make to envelope this into actionable items, being red lines in our zoning ordinance, and then potentially taking applications, taking requests for a zone change, or taking requests to do some things. If we were only considering this within existing districts, we've now created it's depending on the property owner that looks at it, it's their perspective. They would either consider it an opportunity or a burden.
Mm-hmm.
If you're neighboring a property owner and you don't want to have a manufactured home next to you, that becomes a burden that all of a sudden they by right have the ability to do that. The property owner who's looking potentially to install a manufactured home would see it as an investment opportunity or an opportunity for themselves to upgrade. We didn't want this disaffecting property owners in this city just sort of pushing their hand on someone's back to make this change. In considering a new district, we're not pushing people into that change. What we're really doing is we're saying we're creating an opportunity that says, if you desire to make this change, here's where we fit it into our existing plan. Here's potentially where we fit it into a future plan. And property owners can elect to make those changes themselves. If and when they do, it triggers another notification process. It triggers another conversation in how future commission members, future council members will consider that. But it becomes part of the tools in our toolbox. So this isn't down the road leading to immediate changes to someone's property, other than potentially Millard's Apple Park, which is already platted and designed for this. But what it does do is it creates an opportunity. I think that's what we were looking to do, is straddle that fine line
Mm-hmm.
of not forcing property owners where they don't want to go, or not giving other property owners an opportunity that they would otherwise want. This is our way to sort of walk that line and still meet the state's obligation.
And thank you. And not to get my cart before my horse, but in the next item, we talk about different pieces to the ordinance that deals with manufactured homes, and specifically putting in there, like, I believe it's they got to be anchored to the ground, so we're not necessarily taking a train car, bringing it in and calling it a prefab home. Like, there's different stipulations we've put on it.
There'll be some specifics that the commission will consider recommending to council separately. This was obviously the preliminary step. How do we fit this into our vision? How do we fit this into our guide looking forward? Again, the comp plan already mentions manufactured housing many times and wrestles with both perspectives, the positive and negative perspectives of it, but doesn't really put it in the future land use map. This creates a category that is applicable to manufactured homes in our future land use map, which is our basis for then considering changes to our zoning ordinance.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Just to be clear, the first action we'll take, or the first action we're considering taking, is to create the new district.
No, this action will be to update the future land use plan to include,
The
let me go
flu-
back, to include two-family mix land use class. And again, let me get there.
It's creating the yellow zones.
There you go. Two-family mixed. And I got to get with Juan. This will be refined to the letter when we present this to council. Debated on whether we say mixed or mixed, but again, that's grammatical. Two-family mixed. We're creating a land use class, not designated a district. We're creating a class so we can reflect it accurately within our future land use map. So you're recommending to council that we establish the two-family mixed land use class and update the future land use map accordingly.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If there are no more questions, would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the action on zoning. Oh, wait, am I on the right one today?
Highlighted it right there.
Even better.
It's a zoning case, but it's it's a
Okay, so I am
complaint
on right, make sure. Zoning
Part B.
case 2026-04 for comprehensive plan amendment to update the Nacogdoches future land use plan by adding a two-family mixed residential future land use class, which is compatible with single-family, two-family manufactured home residential land uses in certain areas within the city limits of Nacogdoches, Texas.
And I will second that. Thank you for reading all of that. So to take a vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So motion carries.
Okay.
Moving on to item 5C. Discuss and consider action on amendments to the Code of Ordinances of the City of Nacogdoches, Texas, including Chapter 118 zoning, Article 1 in general, Section 118-1 definitions, Article 3 district regulations, and Article 4 supplementary district regulations, Section 118-317 manufactured housing to establish a new residential zoning district which provides for manufactured home land uses and to update supplemental regulations.
Good evening, Commissioners. This item is essentially the next step, okay? The Commission, and granted, all of these items are together, and the Commission is simply providing a recommendation to the Council, but there's an efficiency measure here that we're sort of bringing these on the same agenda so that we can be expedient in how we process and consider these. But we do this in very specific order so that the Commission can look at the comp plan first, consider it, okay it. If that doesn't move forward, then these other items are really moot points, okay? So this item is about the zoning ordinance. What changes will we make to the zoning ordinance language, the chapters within it, to simply reflect the city's intent to create this new R3M district, which we'll talk about. In detail, here is the existing definition for manufactured homes. I did mention that word home, for whatever reason, seemed to be missing. Didn't materially change the definition, but might as well clean that up while we're looking at these changes. And we just defined HUD code. It's a term that we've been using in our presentations. It's a term that if we continue to use that to distinguish mobile homes, manufactured homes, or anything like that, we want to make sure we include HUD code because state legislation is very specific to that. But our definition otherwise is relatively the same. It doesn't have to be an 8 by 40 or a 320 square foot home. It can be larger than that, and many of them are. It's simply a minimum size, and it does speak to how generally and initially a lot of these HUD code manufactured homes were transported. But otherwise, we showed a clip there of our land use schedule. You can see that there's just nothing but blanks next to manufactured home. We don't allow for it in our current code. our goal is to identify a district or identify uses that create that P, add that P to manufactured home in at least one area. Abandon that. So the new zoning district proposing within this zoning ordinance is R3M, two-family mixed dwelling district. It creates a residential district which is appropriate for single-family housing, two-family, duplex or townhome housing. That means they have a shared roof, and then HUD code manufactured housing. The purpose of the zoning districts, which is a red line change in 118.269. Again, we slightly updated the R3 duplex dwelling district to make sure that when we mention two-family, we're talking about duplex. We've mentioned townhome before. Townhome is defined in supplemental regs, but it's really that shared use, shared roof concept in terms of housing and density. And now R3M, that number 5. And I will make note when we present this to the council, if this moves forward, we present this to the council, the numbering may be a little off in your red lines. If you notice that, we created a number 5 to go directly under that R3. I failed to red line change those additional numbers, so it needs to sequentially make sense. We will make that change when this is presented to the council. So if there's some grammarians in here, don't call me out on it. We've managed to catch it, just not in time for this agenda. One of the key points in looking at the land use schedule, and you do have a full list of the land uses in your agenda packet, just make note that the only difference at this point, and going back to mentions of are we meeting the minimum standard or are we doing something more, this R3M district mirrors R3 in terms of residential uses in all but manufactured home. So primarily these desirable areas were identified. They're enveloped within an existing R3 district. Property owners within those areas that are desirable, if they choose to zone change to R3M, they would be changing their zoning or requesting a change to allow for this manufactured home use. Everything else within that R3M are allowable uses, whether it be specific use permitted or by right permitted, that P designation. This is really the only change to that. Specifically, and again, this is going to specifically targeting that manufactured home use. That is the change. The district standards, I'll show you the red line codes, code changes in a second, but in terms of what types of homes would be allowed, not just HUD code manufactured, but are we putting an age limit on it? Yes, we are recommending an age limit. Are we still allowing accessory structures and the other things that are typically allowed? Yes, we are still allowing those things. If we're going to allow manufactured homes by right, we're going to allow the same uses that the other homes have access to within that zoning district. Home occupations, all those things stay the same. But we do have some standards that we are applying specifically to manufactured homes because of the way they're built, because HUD also designates and guides things like tie-ins and foundations, and because HUD code had updated its code earlier in 2025, and the city had updated its building codes in 2025. 2 years old or newer was a designation or additional supplemental regulation we wanted to make sure in place here so that we're always following the newer standard with HUD code manufactured homes. How does this mirror other homes that are built? If other homes are stick built, they're going to be new when they're installed. They're going to be new when they're built. This falls in line with that, and it does allow the city to continue maintaining a higher standard along with HUD in terms of the installation of these homes. Again, what is prohibited, what's not allowed, and continues to not be allowed under this new district standard, mobile homes or pre-1976 manufactured homes would still not be allowed. And any manufactured homes, HUD code manufactured homes, older than 2 years from the date of application. We get more specific in our red line language. I'll show you that in a minute. Recreational vehicles, no, those won't be considered. Anything on a rolling chassis won't be considered. Then multifamily commercial use is not a part of this consideration. That graphic you see in the upper right, that is the red plate, the HUD code designation. So if it is truly HUD code manufactured, it's going to have that red plate, a marking and a number and identification tag. Oh, let me go back one more. The setbacks, front, side, rear setbacks, all those remain the same as an R3. So all the standards that a property owner would have to meet today to build a traditional home, they'd have to meet under this R3M district. Here's the red line language. Really two pieces to this because there's only two items in the existing code as far as supplemental regulation. One of those being how that home is installed on a foundation, not just anchored to the ground. We're saying it must be securely and permanently anchored to a foundation designed and inspected by a licensed professional engineer to verify it meets specific structural standards of HUD and particularly the HUD Permanent Foundations Guide. Our building inspector, Mark Spees, is here, can answer any specific questions you have in that regard. Our goal here was to identify a way to secure manufactured homes to the ground the same way you would secure single-family homes so that they don't become a potential liability or impediment to neighboring properties or even the property owner or the resident themselves. How they're anchored to the ground, HUD does provide guidance for that, and we're simply allowing the code to point to HUD for those rules and guidelines. And if there's licensed installers that install these manufactured homes, they're going to be following those guidelines anyway. And then number 3, that's a new item. Number 2 remains the same, skirted. Skirted and weathering. The cities are still allowed to apply that regulation to manufactured homes. We're going to continue that. We always have. That also applies to homes within manufactured home parks. So that will not change. And then the third item, this applies that 2 years or younger time frame, that age requirement for these manufactured homes. Establishes that they must meet that age standard, must not have been lived in beyond those 2 years, or even not manufactured beyond those 2 years. Again, trying to follow that standard and keep our codes in line with our building codes and advances that HUD has in its standard as well. So really 3 sections, that obviously the definition section, that 269, and then of course 273, and then that 317, those supplemental regs. Those are our changes to establish this R3M district. This doesn't apply it anywhere in the city. It just establishes a district within our code. It gives, if established, it would give property owners a choice to change to that district, and it would give commissioners and council members some consideration. It doesn't automatically change anything at this point. It's simply a standard. And I'll be here to answer questions after the public hearing.
All righty, thank you. Do we have any questions?
I think you gotta open it up to the public, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we will open it up to public hearing. Does anyone have any questions for the city? Okay, then we will close public hearing and move on to further discussion.
I have no questions.
Me either.
Pretty cut and dry, I think. Thank you. So if there are no questions, points of discussion, does anyone like to make a motion?
It's our turn.
Can I say 5C or no? Am I in trouble for saying
No,
that?
Jerry says you have to say it verbatim. It gives me a hard time anytime I try to approve an SUP.
I mean, this determines this.
Our council members will typically say recommend as outlined, as staff presented and outlined in item 5C.
Give me that in my own board.
I make a motion to approve 5C as presented.
I second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say the same. Sounds like the motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 5D. Discuss and consider action on zoning case ZON 2026-05 for a zone change from R3 two-family duplex to R3M two-family mixed for platted properties in the Millard's Apple Park subdivision, sections 1 through 8, consisting of approximately 30.1 acres and 69 lots, generally located near the intersection of Woden Road and Apple Boulevard, Nacogdoches, Texas.
Good evening, Commissioners. So this is the last step in the process. So this, if approved, would amend the actual zoning ordinance to include the new R3M zoning district, and so we can be in compliance with Senate Bill 785. So the subject property is Millard's Apple Park subdivision, sections 1 through 8, located on Woden Road, approximately 1/2 mile south of the loop. The subdivision consists of approximately 30 acres and 69 individually platted residential lots. This is the city's initiated request to rezone the subdivision from R3 two-family duplex to the newly established R3M two-family residential manufactured zoning district. Millard's Apple Park was selected because of the existing platted residential subdivision was individually owned lots, existing public infrastructure, and an established residential development pattern that already includes manufactured homes. Unlike the manufactured home park, the proposed R3M district is intended to allow one principal dwelling on each platted residential lot. This slide compares the existing zoning with the proposed zoning. Currently, Millard's Apple Park subdivision is zoned R3 two-family residential duplex. The proposed rezone would only allow lots within the subdivision to the new R3M two-family residential manufactured zoning district. No surrounding properties are included in this request. The subdivision is bordered with existing R3 zoning to the west and to the north, with the remaining boundaries outside the city limits. With the Commission's recommendation of approval, the future land use designation for Millard's Apple Park subdivision is now two-family mixed residential. As discussed in the previous item, this designation was established to identify areas within the single-family homes, duplexes, and HUD code manufactured homes are compatible with the existing development pattern. The proposed R3M zoning district is consistent with the future land use designation and serves as the implementing zoning district for the comprehensive plan. Staff believes that the proposed R3M zoning district is consistent with the comprehensive plan and appropriate for the existing residential subdivision. This is a picture of the entrance of the Apple Park subdivision from Woden Road, and then some examples of the manufactured homes within the subdivision. As part of the city's public engagement process, staff conducted 2 neighborhood meetings prior to this public hearing. The first meeting was held on June 30th to discuss the proposed R3M zoning district for Millard's Apple Park subdivision. Notification postcards were mailed to all property owners within 500 feet of the subdivision. One property owner attended the meeting and expressed no opposition of this request. The proposed second meeting was held on July 1st to discuss the proposed comprehensive plan amendment establishing the two-family mixed residential future land use designation. 15 property owners attended the meeting. Most of the discussion was focused on the proposed designation and what would allow and why those particular areas were chosen. For tonight's public hearing, notice was mailed to all property owners within 500 feet of the subdivision, and staff received no written responses in favor or in opposition of the request. Staff has reviewed the request based on these criteria and finds that the proposed zoning amendment is compatible with the surrounding properties, will not impede orderly development of the area, and is not expected to create adverse impacts related to traffic or infrastructure. And this concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions after the public hearing.
Alrighty, thank you. So we will now open to public hearing. If there's anyone who'd like to ask questions, come on forward and state your name and address.
Come all the way up there?
Yes,
All the way up here.
On the record.
And thank you so much.
My name's Brady Taylor. I'm superintendent of Woden ISD. I live at 4485 Nacogdoches, or 4485 FM 226. I'm here just to understand what was going on with it, because y'all are saying that Apple Park is inside the city limits. Apple Park is in our district, our Woden ISD school district. So when we cut in there, that's what we were worried about. What my concern was when I saw 30 acres, 69 lots, I was making sure that it wasn't extra but y'all are, my understanding is that is the existing area that's already Apple Park. Am I correct with that?
We'll address your question when your comments
Okay.
are done.
Okay. That is one of my biggest concerns, because when I thought it was going to be 69 extra lots, puts a little stress on Woden ISD. My other,
Classrooms.
yeah, that's a big deal. And my other concern was that I'm not understanding how that. I don't know any other district that has or that cuts inside y'all's city. That's my concern, is that I don't know why it's ours, but yet it's in the city. So we have, as far as Woden, our school district, we have no really say of how that district. Not that it's bad, good, or in between. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just wondering, how do we get representation with that if what we get as far as the school district goes into y'all's city part of it. So anyway, that's about all I got as my two main concerns. It was cleared it up. A lot of it cleared it up as far as not being extra. It's just changing what's existing there. And I understand a lot of that's because of the laws that was passed. So that helped me out a lot. But that's my biggest two questions right there. So, all right.
All righty, thank you.
Thank y'all.
We'll keep going with comments, and then I made note.
Okay. Do we have anyone else that would like to participate? Any questions or comments? Good
My
evening.
name is Willie Ross, and I'm a neighbor to the Apple Park Boulevard. And I'm trying to figure out,
What's your
Ma'am,
address, ma'am?
would you state your address for
Your
us?
address, residential address?
my address is 2896 FM 2259.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Nacogdoches, And I'm a neighbor to the Apple Park Boulevard. And I'm concerned about the change, the zone change and all of that. How would it affect me? And all of the property that they have, will it be in the back or will it be up front? Because I'm right on the corner there. And I'm just trying to understand what's going on.
Oh, well, yes, ma'am, thank you. We're gonna address those things as soon as
Okay,
public comment is closed.
okay.
All right, do we have anyone else that would like to ask any questions or participate in the discussion? If not, we will close public hearing.
We
Is that
can
correct?
respond. Yes, you can close the public hearing, and then
Okay,
we
public hearing is closed.
can address some of those if the commission would like.
Yes, I'm sorry. I want to make sure that I do those in the correct order so that we,
We'll close. There's no more comments. You can go ahead and officially close the public hearing, and then we can address.
okay. So public hearing is closed and we will move on to questions and discussions. So the question regarding the Woden School District,
Yes, I mean, that's a school district boundary and city boundary. Obviously, those are two different things. This doesn't impact the school district's boundary at all. It doesn't identify new lots. Well, when I mentioned infill development as sort of a goal in how we identify desirable areas, how we identify potentially Millage Apple Park, it's already established. We're not creating new lots with this. We're simply providing a new zoning district. So that's R3M, that new zoning district. It allows property owners that own property in Millards to install a manufactured home if they desire to do that. Many of the lots are developed. There's still room for additional subdivisions. So if some of the property owners that have some of those larger lots with nothing on them, if they decide to subdivide in the future, they could do that now. They could build a traditional single-family home in that subdivision, and this would give them an opportunity, if they considered a manufactured home to build a manufactured home. So there may be some subdivision opportunity in the future, considerations in the future that would densify this neighborhood, but it's within the city limits. It's already platted. It would have to be replatted and subdivided for new homes to go in. This doesn't do that. It just designates a new entitlement for the subdivision that provides property owners with the opportunity to install manufactured homes. Not sure if that answers your question completely, but I came from an area kind of around the Austin metro where you had very overlapping boundaries. You had city jurisdictions and county jurisdictions, and sometimes city would split two counties. Sometimes the city would have 3 different school districts within its own city limit jurisdiction, and school districts have to look forward, look at future development, and make a determination on future funding opportunities, future requests, and capital planning. Cities are doing the same thing. So definitely appreciate your question on that. But school district or ISD boundaries doesn't impact any of that, if that helps. And then it applies to the existing lots within the Millard's Apple Park subdivision, doesn't create new lots or anything like that. So we're working with what we have existing. We're just putting a new zoning district label on top of it. And then to speak to the neighbor's concern about how it may affect your property, this zone change, and Juan, can you push to that map? It will apply to the whole subdivision. I'm not sure in terms of, yeah, can you jump to that? Yeah, there you go. I presume that you probably live to the south or to the east, is that correct? Ma'am, you probably live to the south or east of this neighborhood, further down Woden Road?
No, I live just as you turn into Apple Park,
Oh, okay.
right on the corner.
Oh, you're in Apple Park?
Yeah.
Okay. If this were to go into effect in September, it doesn't change anything. If you decided that you wanted to build a bigger home, and that happened to be a manufactured home, you would be able to do that. Right now, unless you met some of our non-conforming use standards, you would not be able to do that. So it doesn't change anything automatically, but it does give you options as a property owner. Okay?
So, Mike, I do have a question, and it may be a Jerry question. So, Apple Park has a covenant, and so I've read through it, and it seems as though they have a architecture committee that approves any changes to structures.
Mm-hmm.
Is that committee still going to be in existence, even though we're putting all the zone so if there's any changes to anything within this zone, I mean, it's following its typical process. It's just creating the space that legally we have to create for manufactured homes.
Correct. And I believe the Senate bill addresses that specifically about any kind of covenants that are already in place at the time. So this is not going to affect that restricted, those restricted covenants that are already in place.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Just want to make sure.
And I'll add, we've had to sort of answer a few questions related to that.
Yeah.
Generally, subdivision covenants or neighborhood covenants can be more restrictive than the city. They can't be less restrictive. So where this subdivision has allowed for manufactured home uses that did not meet the city's requirements, city prohibited. So whether or not the covenant says it's allowed, if the city didn't allow it, it's not allowed. Now that applies, it's allowed. The city's rules in this particular zoning district would match what the covenants say. And then if there's additional, like Jerry said, if there's additional architectural standards that have to be considered, the city's not going to conflict with that. It's up to the subdivision to enforce those.
Yeah, because they can't have chickens. I saw that. All right, I have no further questions.
Me either.
All right. So with no further questions, would someone like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we approve agenda item 5D as presented.
And I will second. I'm trying to take some pressure off of you. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And there are no opposed, so motion passes. And that brings us to
Adjournment.
item 6.
Oh, any
Future agenda items. A planning and zoning member may inquire about a subject for which notice has not been given. A statement of specific factual information or the recitation of existing policy may be given. Any deliberation shall be limited to a proposal to place the subject on an agenda for a subsequent meeting.
I have none.
Nor do we. Okay, then if there are none, that moves us to item 7, to adjourn. It is 6:06, and we are now adjourned. Thank you.